Hello everybody and welcome to the first ever episode of MMA Time. Basically I just thought it'd be cool to start up a YouTube series that was just about MMA, and each episode is going to be about something specific that's MMA related. It could be about a fighter, it could be about an organization, it could be about an event. It probably won't really be like your regular MMA news show where they talk about what's going on right now in MMA like UFC events that are coming up and stuff. I just thought it'd be cool to maybe talk about classic stuff or fighters that I really felt has stood out over time. Or in this case, it's going to be a top 5 video, and I thought it'd be cool to discuss the top 5 MMA promotions outside of the UFC and also that aren't owned by Zuffa, so Strikeforce unfortunately doesn't qualify for this list. I just feel like it'd be cool to talk about the organizations that UFC hasn't gotten to yet, because UFC has bought so many, well, I should say Zuffa, because, it's not really UFC, but Zuffa has bought up so many great organizations over time that it's hard to be a great organization now and not be the UFC. I mean, you're always going to be number 2. You're most likely never going to be number 1, because UFC is always going to hold that spot. But man, if you get close, the UFC will swoop in and get you. WFA, WEC, Pride, Strikeforce, Affliction, all those great promotions. Affliction only had 2 events before they got eaten up by Zuffa, so it just shows you, I mean, as soon as you start getting big pay-per-view numbers or start doing well on some kind of broadcast channel, Zuffa's going to get you, and it happened with Strikeforce, and it'll probably happen with some of the organizations that I'll be discussing in this video, but still I just think it would be nice to shine some light on some of the promotions that are out there right now that Zuffa hasn't gotten to yet. So let's get started. Let's jump into this. This is the top 5 MMA promotions outside of Zuffa. Number 5, Titan Fighting Championships. Titan FC got started in 2006, but it never really took off until around 2011. And it's not really one of those promotions that is a permanent home for fighters. Usually it's just a place for guys that are coming up to, have a couple of fights in, or guys that are freshly cut from the UFC, for them to go in there and get a couple fights done while they're trying to get back into the UFC or get signed to one of the more major promotions. But it's a really good organization, and they have a lot of really entertaining events. They've had a lot of really good fighters fight on their cards, like Brett Rogers and George Santiago, Jens Pulver, Anthony Johnson, a lot of really cool names like that. And also Braulio Estima, one of the best BJJ specialists out there, recently made his MMA debut with them, so that was really nice. So yeah, I really like them. They're one of the many MMA organizations that shows their fights on HDNet, which is now known as Axis. I don't know why, but I don't know. Sounds cool, I guess. But they kind of stand out to me because all of their events are really entertaining and always have, at least 2 or 3 names you recognize. And they don't really try to be like a Bellator or a Strikeforce. They know what they are, so they take advantage of that. And I'm always excited when they put on an event, and never really disappointed me. So I think they deserve the number 5 spot in this list, and there you go. There's number 5, Titan Fighting Championships, also known as Titan FC. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, Invicta Fighting Championships. Invicta FC is a really awesome promotion, and one of the very cool things about them is that they are an all-female promotion. Every single one of their fights on every one of their events is a girl fight. I think that's awesome because I'm a huge supporter of female MMA, and I always have been. I think, if they can fight as good as the guys, and some of them can, might as well let them compete at a high level. And that's what Invicta FC does. And they're pretty new. They've only had about 3 events, I think, but every single one of their events has just been great. And they have some of the top female fighters, like Sarah McMahon. Mollis Kunin fought for them. And they just keep on putting on these great events. And unfortunately, now that the news has hit that UFC will be having women, the Invicta FC could be in a lot of trouble. So that does worry me a bit. Hopefully they stay around and, they can be the proving ground for female fighters, so that up-and-coming females will have a place to fight. And hopefully Invicta FC gets a TV deal pretty soon, so I don't have to watch their events online and I can sit down on my couch and watch them on my TV. That'd be nice, but I really like this promotion. Also, their president is a female as well, so I think that's really cool. She seems really smart. She seems like a real MMA fan, and that's pretty important. So yeah, I love Invicta FC. I love all their events. There's a lot of finishes on their cards. The fights that aren't finishes are great battles. Pretty much every main event on all three of their cards have just been great battles or great fights. And really, if you're a fan of MMA, even if you're not a fan of women's MMA, you got to give it a shot, and you got to watch one of these events because they're great, and I love them, and I hope Invicta FC sticks around. I hope they don't get eaten up by Zuffa. It'd be nice to see all those female fighters come from Invicta FC and into the UFC, but at the same time, I like tuning in for an all-female card. I think it's cool, and it's a change of pace, and it's something different in the MMA world, and I like it. So I hope they stick around. It's a great event. It's a great organization. If you haven't seen any of their events, go check one out or watch the one that's coming up. I think it's coming on next month probably, but yeah, look it up. So there's number 4, Invicta FC, kicks ass. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3, ONE FC. ONE FC is a fairly new MMA organization, but man, these guys know how to put on a show. This is a very, very good organization. It's got all the Japanese rules that we're used to from the Pride days, but it's in a cage, so that's awesome. They have a lot of really cool fighters that fight for them. Unfortunately, they have Bob Sapp in there. Andre Arlovsky has fought for them. Phil Baroni, who a lot of people aren't too big of a fan of because, he doesn't have the greatest record ever. But man, that dude fights hard, and I like watching his fights because they're always really entertaining. Also, Tim Sylvia fought for them, and Hollis Gracie, who's an interesting guy to watch, I guess, even though his UFC debut was terrible. But yeah, soccer kicks, head stomps, come on, that's awesome. It's everything you love about Japanese MMA, but in a cage. And I always wondered how awesome that would be, and the answer is it's really, really, really awesome. And, I figured it'd be about 4 really's awesome. That may have been 3 really's, I don't know. But, it's really awesome. Really, really, really awesome. And I love this organization, and unfortunately there is a rumor going on around right now that Glory FC has bought them and that they're going to shut them down. And that would be very unfortunate because I really, really like ONE FC, and hopefully it's just a rumor. But if it's not, oh well, at least they put on some great events while they were around, and I'm assuming that when they shut them down, Glory FC will be moving all their fighters into another organization that they recently purchased that I'll talk about in the next one, which is number 2. So let's move on to number 2. That was number 3, ONE FC, which is great, and here we go. Moving on to number 2. Number 2, Dream. That's all, just Dream. Here it is, number 2, Dream. And man, do I love me some Dream. They put on a great event. This is basically just Pride, let's be honest with ourselves. This is Pride minus all the great Pride stars who are in the UFC now. You got the white ring, you got Lenny Hart out there just screeching out MMA fighters' names as they come in an amazing way. You got just awesome, over-the-top Japanese stuff going on, crazy entrances, head stomp, soccer kicks, all that good stuff. And you got a lot of really talented fighters fighting for these guys too. Gegard Mousasi, Jason Mayhem Miller, even Mirko Krokop fought for them, Alistair Overeem, Todd Duffy fought for them one time. So, they really do put on some great fights, and they've been in a hiatus for a while. I actually think they completely shut down the organization, but what's amazing is that Glory FC recently bought them, and so now they're putting on a huge New Year's Eve event, which Dream has always done for a while. They put on New Year's Eve events that they call Dynamite shows, and they're like 8 hours long. It's insane. They have kickboxing fights, MMA fights, unfortunately pro wrestling fights, but it's this huge event to bring in the new year, and it's so Japanese and so badass, and every one of their events really is just amazing, and I love this organization. I'm so happy that it's back. You know, they got Shinya Aoki too that fights for them all the time, Tatsuya Kawajiri as well. They got all the great Japanese guys that are fighting for them. They got some American guys that go up there sometimes, some huge names. I assume Andre Arlovsky will probably want to get in on this action. And so, I just really, really, really like this organization. If you like Japanese MMA and you don't watch Dream, then I don't know what you're doing. You need to watch it because it's great. And I watch a lot of their events over and over because the fights are just so great. And, you know, Japanese MMA, it's just amazing. You know, I grew up watching Pride, so I'm always going to be a big fan of Japanese MMA. And when they have these huge organizations like Dream, it's just so awesome. I love it. I love it a lot. I can't wait for this New Year's Eve event. There's number 2. You know, it was actually really hard to put this at number 2. But number 1 was so hard to deny as the number 1 Non Zuffa promotion. I'm sure you'll agree with me when you see what it is. So let's move on to number 1, the moment you've all been waiting for. Maybe, probably not, because, you know, it's not a very long video, so I doubt you're sitting there, like, you know, anxiously waiting for me to get to number 1. And if you are, then it's just like, come on, you didn't even have to listen to the whole video. You could have just skipped. Come on. Alright, number 2. Let's go. I mean, number 1. My bad. This was number 2. Moving on to number 1. Number 1. Bellator Fighting Championships. Did you really think it was going to be anything else? Now that Zuffa owns Strikeforce and is most likely going to shut them down, there's really no argument as to who the number 2 MMA organization out there is. And, of course, that's going to be Bellator Fighting Championships. They are the number 1 non-Zuffa MMA organization. They are the number 2 MMA organization out there, and they're great. They really know what they're doing, and they really set the bar for what a non-Zuffa organization should be, instead of going out there and just trying to sign up all the fighters that get cut from the UFC like a lot of other organizations try to do. Bellator builds their own talent. They have tournaments full of fighters you haven't even really heard of, but they're really talented fighters. I mean, it's just awesome to see an organization building their own talent, paying their fighters well so that their fighters don't just want to leave the first chance they get. I mean, Eddie Alvarez was making a good living with Bellator, fought there for a very long time, was thought of as one of the top lightweights in the world, really. Then Michael Chandler comes along and beats him, and, you know, it's awesome that Bellator is able to build their own talent. And while they do have some guys like Babalu Sobral and King Mo who are signed with them that are ex-Zuffa guys, they still really don't rely, you know, they don't base their whole promotion off of those guys. They build their own talent. They're on MTV2, which is, you know, while it's not the best channel to be on, it's not bad. I mean, a lot of people watch MTV2, unfortunately. I mean, I think it's a pretty terrible channel. I mean, come on. Before Bellator, it seemed like all they were really riding off of was lingerie football, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Those ladies have some skills. But, you know, back to Bellator. They'll be moving to Spike in 2013, which is huge. That's awesome. They're going to be on, you know, really the birthplace of, not really the actual birthplace of UFC, but really where the UFC took off big was on Spike. And now all those people that were used to watching UFC on Spike are going to get Bellator instead, and that's really going to build up their fan base. And I'm happy because I think Bellator's got a very, very bright future ahead of them, and I can't wait to see more of their events. So there you go. There's number 1 on my list of top 5 non-Zuffa organizations, MMA promotion organizations, whatever you want to call it. Bellator, which is badass, and I know you've heard of it. I know you've seen their events, and, you know, you get where they're the number 2 MMA organization out there right now, and the number 1 non-Zuffa.